So this is the 15 hours GMT edition of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions, Khoodeelaar television channel. And this resumption of use of the usual device owes significant bit to the genius of a woman called Miriam, who took it on herself to check and diagnose the device. And her diagnosis proved successful. There wasn't really anything seriously wrong with the machine, and it is working. Hopefully, it will continue to work for the foreseeable future. And this is the reason why there are so many small parts of the editions. This one is going back to the discussion on Boris Johnson's depravity and corruption and criminality. The Times newspaper, in its editorial, resignation dishonors. Boris Johnson would be unwise to give his father a gong in his parting honors. Now, this is so grotesque, so corrupt, so brazenly dishonest and criminal that it deserves to be thoroughly examined, dissected. And Boris Johnson, as well as his criminally complicit father, Stanley Johnson, and his criminally complicit sister, Rachel Johnson, are exposed for what they are. Because of the technical issues, this particular subject was not possible to be discussed at length earlier today. So let's try again. When Boris Johnson got caught denouncing Muslim women wearing burqas as looking like bank robbers, this was indeed anti-women, anti-Muslim, racist, hate-filled incitement. And some people saw that exactly as the racist, misogynist, anti-Muslim, hateful incitement. And at the height of the controversy that disclosure caused necessarily, Rachel Johnson and Stanley Johnson spoke separately, or at least were broadcast separately on the media, as using the identical phrase that in condemning the Muslim women in the way that Johnson had done, he, Boris Johnson, had not gone far enough. Had not gone far enough. 5 words. Both Rachel Johnson said that, and Stanley Johnson said that. Now, that was a statement made in the full knowledge of the Muslim women being targeted for physical violence in the immediate aftermath of the result of the June 2016 Brexit referendum. But neither Stanley Johnson nor Rachel Johnson made any reference to that series of racist, anti-Muslim violence perpetrated against perfectly innocent Muslim women. Now, Boris Johnson also was in post as the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom when Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, the Iranian born woman married to an accountant, English accountant, Ratcliffe, was detained by the Iranian regime simply in order to use her as a bargaining chip against the British government. Nazanin had done nothing wrong. So, what would common sense say the foreign secretary at the time would do or should do? Common sense would say that the foreign secretary at the time in post would solidarize with Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe and express urgent demand to the Iranian regime to release her. But he didn't do that. Instead, the depraved Boris Johnson told a committee of members of parliament words to the effect that Nazanin was indeed doing something that could entitle the Iranian regime to suspect her of being a spy, which she never was. So, this is the kind of depravity and evilness of Boris Johnson. Now, the Times newspaper, of course, is not the Khoodeelaar campaign. So, the Times newspaper of Monday, the 6th of March 2023, in its second editorial of the day, ran this resignation dishonors. And it is not using words like depravity, evilness, or anything. But for the Times newspaper to say that Johnson is completely involved in dishonesty is probably the most comprehensive expression of disgust by the newspaper of record, which it was for a long time. So, what resignation dishonors shows is that Boris Johnson really, I believe, and I'm saying this on the record here on this program, I have not seen anyone else say this. I don't think I have seen anyone write this. But I'm saying this that of allegations, all the proven allegations against Boris Johnson, the most consistent allegation running through, let's say, 30 years of his so called career is the allegation that he is a liar. And this is not a joke allegation. Somebody who has claimed to be the kind of unique electoral asset for the Conservative Party and who has been elected leader of the Conservative Party and then given the number 10, the keys to number 10 Downing Street. For Boris Johnson to be denounced in that way by the Times in its editorial shows that the Times newspaper, in common with other so called national newspapers and news outlets, is and are in possession of serious evidence that shows that Johnson is unfit for purpose. Now, I am saying that Johnson is not only unfit for purpose, Johnson is already guilty of literally hundreds of indictable offenses. So far from being eligible to claim that he has got some kind of conventional right to list any number of people as recipients of honors on his recommendation, Johnson has been overdue for prosecution on all these crimes that he has been committing. And I would say that steps should be taken. Steps should be taken to put on trial this criminal. That there is not step in sight shows that he will get away. No matter what the Times says, dishonor and all that, he's not going to be held to account. And that is where Imran Khan of Pakistan is wrong to show that there is a rule of law in this country, in the UK. And Imran Khan compares the British judiciary, judicial system, public life, public as better than its equivalent in Pakistan. Why? Because the rule of law is operating in Britain. That is the front page of the Times of 6th. That is the front page of the Times of the 6th of March 2023, and the picture shows that far from feeling guilty, apologetic, shameful, shamed, humble, these two criminals are posing as shamelessly untouched by any call for accountability, etc., etc. Now, we'll go back to what Johnson said, Rachel Johnson has said. At various points in time, they have said, both of them separately. They may have said it jointly, but the access that I have had to any news of their confessions has been through public media. So whatever has been published is all I have to go by. But all means quite a lot. Both Boris Johnson and Rachel Johnson have said that their ancestry actually includes Muslims. Now, anyone who says that as a pointed kind of reference to Islam is saying, in order to use that as proof that they cannot be hostile to Muslims. And this is about the issue of whenever there has been any evidence cited of Boris Johnson being Muslim, anti-Muslim, that is when they recite this. And there are other items on the issue of Boris Johnson in the same edition of the Times newspaper, which is the Monday, the 6th of March 2023. When I organized the resistance against the Conservative Education Secretary in 1992 called Kenneth Clarke, He is now sitting in the House of Peers. When I organized the campaign against the policy of the UK government against the parent governors at the Stratford School, I did that ethically, morally, and essentially in the absence, because of there was no other organizer or organizing campaigns or solidarity campaign showing any interest in the rights of the parents. I was treated by the British media not just a campaigner on educational rights, etc., but they treated me as potentially the most explosive political threat to the country. How could that be? All I was ever trying to do is to constitutionally, legally, and lawfully spell out the existing legal framework under which the opt out school system was allowed by the Conservatives. Stratford School was an opt out school. If anything, the opt out school was not only not delivering what the Tories who introduced the opt out school system, but the case of Stratford School combined and expressed total irrelevance by the governors of the school to the educational rights and needs and welfare of the pupils. The Stratford School at that time was being headed by a woman called Anne Snelling, Snelling. As one of the things that effectively gets across the message, we decided to call her Anne Smelling, meaning she smelt of bad attitude, she smelt of racism, she smelt of incompetence in terms of delivering proper education to the children, and so on. So, what happened as a result of the intervention that I made in January 1992, focus of the British media, who total ignorance of the issues that I was raising. First of all, that the governors of the school had legal, educational, spiritual, moral, educational rights to be involved in the school's governance. When Anne Snelling invited people to become governors, she never expected anything like that. She never expected that a school governor called Ghulam Rasul Shaida would get elected chair of the government. And she most certainly did not imagine my intervention. But as my interventions show, she became a national kind of figure. And she was being given the support by the most ardent racists operating in the so called education field, including the secretary of the Head Teachers Association. It's no longer in existence, but it was in existence into the 1992. And the individual who was the secretary of the association was also a member ideologically of the far right in this country. So we shall be talking about all of those things in due course. Now let's try and see what we can mention by way of updates on the other items that we have been regularly talking about. Let's check if we can get the information. Now, Salman Case, who is currently the head of the UK Domestic Civil Service, has been featured in the news that is now doing the running based on Isabel Oakeshore's handing over of the Matt Hancock WhatsApp messages to the Daily Telegraph. We shall be coming to all of those a bit later. So what the Times editorial talks about is that for the first time in Boris Johnson's career, he has been openly condemned as dishonorable, not by the usual kind of critics who ideologically don't support him ever, but in the Times, whatever the purpose behind the Times editorial, denouncing Boris Johnson's lies and dishonesty and dishonorable abuse of the position of the state. This is something that should be treated as a defining moment. What is he saying? And it says Johnson nominates his father for knighthood. And it's a news item on the front page of the Times, which is scathing. And today's London morning free sheet called Metro takes the mickey. They were completely jokes about Johnson. And it goes on, except the Daily Mail, which is beyond control. It is so excited. The Daily Mail is so excited at the prospect of Rishi Sunak commencing a mass murder of migrants trying to cross the channel, that it is using superlative language. When the Brexit referendum was only about a few weeks away, days away, Johnson reiterated his lies that the UK National Health Service was being starved of essential funding because the United Kingdom, as a member of the European Union, was having to pay hundreds of millions of pounds. Hundreds of millions of pounds to the European Union, which was a brazen lie, and so on. When Nazanin Ghaffari Ratcliffe finally got to know what was the reason behind her detention, it became clear that the British government owed the Iranian government several hundred million pounds as part of a deal or a contract or whatever. And that despite the fact that it was a legally enforceable agreement, the British government was refusing to pay. Now, the Iranians made a serious mistake by choosing to detain Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe. They could have detained a member of the UK state, or they could have intervened in the free movement in the world of members of the state apparatus that was responsible for the wanton refusal to pay the Iranians the money that the Iranians are owed. So it was Boris Johnson who did a multiple layer of lies about Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe before he ceased to be the foreign minister. And so therefore it's not one, it's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples and episodes of the lying by Boris Johnson against partners in diplomacy or partners in international trade, partners in various other things. We shall be talking about the completely corrupt and intentional lying stunt that Boris Johnson has been staging about Ukraine. What we shall be doing, we shall be coming to, as I said, on the other editions, other items of update. This is we are ending this one at 32 minutes, 31 seconds. And we shall be continuing as we gradually normalize our commentary.